Welcome back to the Mage Meetup, where you listen to a wizard talk about the things he likes and hates in gaming. And when I say hate, I can only realistically mean a small fraction of the hatred that Nintendo radiates whenever they decide to do one of their rare price cuts, because I can only hope to live up to those standards. Because with the already expensive Nintendo ecosystem and then the recent price reveals of the latest console that has every underground Reddit thread and prayer circles hoping that this new console is exploitable, no matter how hard Nintendo tries, they will never be able to win against their entire war on piracy, which they've ramped up in the last, I'd say, 5 to 10 years. As not only the internet grows and the amount of shit you'll find just on an average scroll, but also the rise of PC-based hardware that just fills in the gaps of what Nintendo's been failing to deliver to their, I'd say, budget players. And after literal years of me on this channel talking about the latest developments in Nintendo's second Hyrulean Civil War that they brought onto Piracy, I just want to talk about my stance on everything and what I think the future of Nintendo piracy is inevitably gonna look like. And to give you a better understanding, I want to first tell you a story to which the protagonist I will name the Young Sorcerer. Now, who the Young Sorcerer is or could represent, or even if this Young Sorcerer is like based on a real person at all, if your curiosity precedes you on that, I just gotta say that some of the best literature in the world are the ones that leave the story up to interpretation. Also, in case Nintendo's legal team is watching. Some years ago, the Young Sorcerer was really skeptical of the entire Nintendo landscape, but still somehow wanted to get back into playing Nintendo games, just didn't want to commit to paying those full prices for games that weren't at least top of the line hardware that he was already used to paying at that time. So he did the second best thing he could, and that was just looking to emulation on the PC platform, since that's arguably the easiest way to pirate Nintendo games, at least allegedly. I don't know too much about it. Obviously, a lot of players do prefer to pirate the Nintendo games on the Nintendo Switch itself and just have the modded games on the hardware, like with all the mod chips and just having like a whole flash drive of just games installed already. But unfortunately, if you don't already have the launch version of the Nintendo Switch from 2017, this exploit is going to be much harder to do, since the V2 model that they released in like 2018, 2019, that one you have to have some soldering skills to do the same exploit, and you need a lot of professional help to do that. Maybe, I don't know. So the Young Sorcerer did what was easiest and cost him no money, and that was just to go with emulation on the PC that he already had. Now, at the time, PC Nintendo emulators were at an abundance, since this was before Nintendo cracked down on the majority of them, or at least the most popular ones. More on that later. But his choice of emulator was the infamous Ryujinx, which gave the Sorcerer just so much ease in doing what he wanted to do with the games as far as the graphics went, and also just having a file that just you could drag and drop all the game files that you got from wherever you got them from and just load it up directly just straight to the game. And for months, the young wizard had an amazing experience emulating these Nintendo Switch games that he really wanted to try out, but not at the expense of paying $60 or $40, whatever it was, for the games at the time. Games that were years onto the Nintendo Switch lifespan, but still at that full price tag, to which Nintendo tried to justify this pricing as them keeping the value of their games and making consumers feel that they're buying a premium experience, even though we all know that's bullshit, because the only reason that they got away with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is the name alone, because we damn sure know it's not because of the anti-aliasing and the draw distances. But then again, this is Nintendo, one of the pioneers of this entire hobby literally from the beginning, to which they have all these IPs that they can charge insane price tags for, and know the consumers will buy into it eventually, even if it isn't like upfront. But as much as you can hate Nintendo's decisions, you gotta at the end of the day just tip your hat off to them, because they still make some really just amazing games that you want to play over and over again, at least in some franchises. I can't speak for all of them, but because of that fact, the Young Sorcerer appreciated the developers of some of the best games on the Nintendo Switch library that he enjoyed emulating, and just caved in and buying a Nintendo Switch and all the games that he enjoyed playing, along with some of the new ones that he hadn't played before, just because he wanted to support the people that are making the actual good games. But I would say on the grand scale that the Young Sorcerer is just the special case scenario when it comes to piracy in general. Most people that pirate games don't end up actually buying the titles that they pirated later on to support the people that made the game. They just pirate the games, play it, and then just move the fuck on. But again, if this last month alone has shown us anything about the company of Nintendo, it's that they are not afraid to just lean their weight on the consumer when it comes to their games, since they know that they have IPs that are just going to be generational classics to the average Nintendo fan. And that's not me saying that Nintendo doesn't have classics. I mean, far from that. I'm just saying that Nintendo might be overshooting the theory that every Nintendo fan is going to be willing to pay these, prices for every single game that they put out, and that there just won't be a majority of players that will result to even illegal activities just to enjoy their games. And hell, not even just a pricing situation. Some people go against the grain of supporting Nintendo products just because of the decisions that they've made to go against piracy in the last, like I said, decade. Nintendo has sued pirated game distributors, most infamously Gary Bowser, who will be paying Nintendo thousands of dollars for likely the rest of his living life. That whole brigade they went on against content creators on YouTube for even having Nintendo gameplay on the website or even having Nintendo music in the background. I mean, Nintendo goes hard in the paint with this shit. They even go outside of just the illegal distribution route of their games, and they go after games like Garry's Mod, who's notorious for having mods in this entire freaking game. It's literally a mod title, making the creators on that game remove any reference to Nintendo IP, whether it's in player models, NPCs, anything that players just put into the game that has a Nintendo character, it's no longer able to be in there because of Nintendo. Purging Reddit threads, canceling Smash Bros tournaments if it isn't officially licensed by Nintendo. Like, they've done so many things over the years to piss off so many players to the point that it's a meme now to see any Nintendo reference outside of a Nintendo console, just because, they might actually go after you for using their IP in a malicious way in their opinion. And we all know that within the gaming industry, outside of maybe sending hate mail or mean comments on a post or something, the most objecting thing you can do to a game developer is to not buy their game, or to not buy the game and also pirate it, which people just do out of protest to Nintendo. But even still, the fact remains that even though I don't like Nintendo's pricing and the young sorcerer story is really inspiring to me, I'm not stupid enough to misunderstand that it is Nintendo's law-given right to protect their IP in any way that they see fit, as long as it can hold up in a court of law. So even if you don't like what Nintendo is doing, if whatever they accuse of a certain person of doing as far as infringing on their copyright, if they can prove that to be true, then unfortunately, morally, they have the upper hand in just the situation, since they have the right to go after whatever is going against their company. But with that also means that they will never not also have the upper hand of just being the most hard-ass company in the world, because them putting this much resource into fighting piracy and thinking that whatever plan they put into place will stick and players won't find a way to circumvent that is the most delusional thing that I've ever seen the richest company in Japan ever do. Because even with their purge on emulators from last year, when they shut down the aforementioned Ryujinx, Yuzu, and all the forks that use the same infrastructure that those apps had, I think they shut down over like 1,000 emulators based on those two apps alone. Those emulators are still out in the wild, either in different versions or people going on GitHub and updating those apps themselves, even though they're now defunct and technically owned by Nintendo since they bought the rights to the name or something like that. The World Wide Web is likely the biggest infrastructure on this entire globe, so for Nintendo to think that they can put a curb on piracy on something that relatively has no end to it is just downright almost impossible. And even though, like I said, they are going after Reddit threads and tracking down IPs to see who's downloading what, but even still, players are wising up now enough to know they shouldn't download things just on an open freaking tab, just with no protection at all. And with the Switch one being dominated by piracy the way that it was in this generation, I have no doubt in my mind that eventually the Switch 2 will suffer the same fate. Now, will it be a year one thing? Maybe not, because we don't know what the hardware looks like or how easy it will be to emulate those games, but I have no doubt it's possible, because even though this is a much more graphically intense console by the looks of it, more like PS4 level graphics, we're just now getting at decent PS4 emulation 10 years after that console was released. So even if it takes 10 years for the Switch 2 to get emulated, it will happen eventually. So one can only hope that Nintendo takes the average player's lifestyle in mind when they're doing the prices for the Switch 2 generation going forward, even though even just by the looks of the launch titles and the launch accessories, that is just completely out the window at this point, especially with the tariffs and shit. That's just, you can't do anything about that. But even in the areas that Nintendo can shave $1 off or two, the fact that they will likely not do that is enough for players to be incentivized to just go out and pirate their games, which I have no doubt will stop anytime soon, no matter what Nintendo does to crash out and just go after whoever is just downloading their games illegally or cracking their software.